Charlie's on the move. Charlie. Oh, yes.
Screws the ball around the corner. Oh, it's a goal. Incredible start from Daniel Bradshaw.
He's got it. Brisbane have won. Bailey's kicked the goal. The dream comes true.
Here it is. The Brisbane Lions have done it. The Hawks, the Bombers, the Crows. They couldn't do it in the 80s and the 90s. But the Lions have gone back to back to back.
It is the Brisbane Lions fancast with JB and Patrick ahead of a prelim final locked in 5:15 this Saturday night at the Gabba against Calrton. Only 4 teams remain, and the 3 that are not the Lions, I'm both sort of worried about, but confident we can beat them at the same time, which is a bit of a weird feeling. It is going to be absolutely jam-packed at the Gabba this Saturday as the Calrton continue to ride the wave of their first finals appearance in 10 years. 2 teams out in straight sets, which we will get to. The VFL bow out in a prelim final, and the women, they get another big win in the AFLW, but it is all about the prelim final this Saturday. Pat, you managed to make it to the VFL, but what did you make of the week off?
It was nice not to have to stress about anything. It was quite tasty, I think.
Yeah. People that follow the BL Fancast Twitter page will know that I not necessarily wished it upon, but I did before the Melbourne Calrton game on Friday night. I said, let the injuries and suspensions commence. And look, it's basically all you could want for. That was a pretty brutal game. Doherty looks like he's going to be sore for a little bit. Waitering, maybe a concussion, maybe just a hit to the throat. Pat Cripps went into the game with a bloody mattress duct tape around his ribcage as it was before he copped another smattering. And Blake Acres has been playing 2 weeks with only one shoulder. So things are looking up, but they are going to welcome back Harry Mackay and Jack Martin as well. We've potentially got our own injury concerns.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, not a great indictment on Melbourne's kind of character, was it?
No. I think as the game wore on, knowing that Cozzy Pickett was going to miss at least a week for his on-field indiscretions, I think I preferred to play Melbourne, especially with the way they were moving the ball, but Carlton's ball movement wasn't exactly top-notch either.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I think it's kind of like probably more like a element of, for me, like by the end of it, I sort of just wanted like Calrton to somehow limp over the line. I didn't think they were going to do it with 2 minutes ago. I was like, if they could somehow get there, they look dead. Whereas Melbourne sort of, there's still the element of fear of like, you know, what do they say, like Petrarca or Oliver or Gawn like going crazy or whatever. Like I know Gawn's obviously struggling, but yeah, goodness me, like Cozzy Pickett, what a knob. He had a horrible kind of game. Like I know he kicked a couple of goals, but like 50-metre penalties. I don't know how he didn't get a week for the jumper punch when Link McCarthy did the same thing to Baldy McGee and got a week. He got a week for the one that sort of, I like, it's just like, I don't know, who cares? I guess he's having a late start to the year, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Judd McVie, what an awful effort on that Sam Doherty thing at the end. Like, was it Judd McVie? Probably. I don't know.
I don't rightly know.
He like just went the ball, completely missed it, and Doherty was able to like, you know, run in at goal quite comfortably. So Melbourne are in all sorts of trouble, and it's really funny because they think they've done nothing wrong, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're all right." And Simon Goodwin just looks like a peanut. Fallout from the Angus Brayshaw, Braden Maynard. Maynard got off, which is a good win for football. Do you think Melbourne will regret the footage of Angus Brayshaw running on Tuesday morning coming out before the tribunal? Of him sort of having a bit of a jog around, having a laugh and a high five. I thought he was like in a coma or something. Like he was not as bad as I thought he was. And for me, like I've had one really bad concussion, and I had to take like a week off work, and was in bed for a week. So I don't know.
Yeah, look, I don't know either. I like. Once again, as I tweeted on our page as well, I was very happy for Melbourne and Collingwood and the supporters to continue flinging feces at each other for as long as they want while we just go about our business uninterrupted. Because that just went on and on and on. And then even after Melbourne went out in straight sets, I went across to the Melbourne subreddit and there was Collingwood supporters just posting pictures of Braden Maynard like, aha, suck shit. And you're like, what sort of person are you? But all right, go for it. Like, all the good work that Craig McRae has done rebuilding the Collingwood name has just been severely undone by Collingwood and their supporters over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but is that ever going to be the case, or was it just kind of like some sort of weird stasis period of like the idea of Collingwood is less awful than the reality actually is, you know, and the mask is going to slip. I mean, the mask is always going to slip. Like, I don't know. Collingwood were never going to be likable, and I think we've talked about the fact that, like, no, everyone still hates Collingwood just because the media jams it everywhere. But what an interesting thing to be a Final Four team where you've got, obviously, there's going to be heavy, like, Vic bias going towards a Collingwood-Carlton sort of grand final with, like, the people's favourites being GWS, and we're just slowly just going still under the radar.
Fine. Perfect.
Like, it's so weird, the idea that, like, I said last week, I don't think the MCG is necessarily a factor on grand final day. Like, it's a game. You're not playing a grand final wanting not to play at the MCG. That's the expectation.
Yep.
So I can't see players being like, oh no, the MCG, we played terribly there. It's grand final day, just back and play.
Well, having said that, Collingwood have got a longer history of not playing well on grand final day as well. They love losing grand final, so maybe that's going to play into it as well. Who knows? We've got to get through Calrton first, and they are, I guess, the feel-good story for a lot of footy pundits. I'm not necessarily buying into the whole conspiracy theory that the AFL wants a Collingwood-Carlton grand final and they're going to umpire accordingly and all this sort of carry-on related to that. You know, I think it's going to be a tough game on Saturday. Carlton have got a great list, as we've spoken about, and they're finally playing a type of footy that reflects that. Their midfield is looking good, dangerous. Sam Walsh is playing really good footy. Charlie Curnow can obviously break out at any moment, and Wiedering, he's looking good as well. Marchbank, yeah, he was on and off across the weekend, but did you see, speaking of Sam Walsh, he wears a Dior mouthguard?
I did see that, and I heard, what's his name? Fogarty?
Yeah.
Fogati? Like, he's got like the weirdest name. Like,
I think
Darcy Fogarty and the other one, Fogarty.
Yeah, I think it's Fogarty.
Got it, nailed it. He was none the wiser too. So what's going on there?
It's a bit weird, isn't it? This whole like working class Calrton and then a Dior mouthguard, which I can only assume is in the 4 to 5 figures for no reason other than it's a Dior mouthguard.
Do they even sell those?
I don't know. Evidently, either that or he's just got some sort of Dior decal on his mouthguard because he likes the brand, in which case, excuse me?
Yeah, look, I mean,
let me just Google Dior mouthguard.
Don't have a great deal to say about that.
Hold on. In news.com,
while you look,
truth revealed over Sam Walsh's viral mouthguard detail. Dun, dun, dun.
There we go. Well, it's not breaking news, but it's interesting, not news.
It's just a print on the mouthguard, a club spokesperson confirmed, and he's been wearing it for the last 3 months. So he's gone out of the way to put Dior onto his mouthguard for one reason or another.
Well, could he have a lawsuit going his way?
I mean, if you were in the Dior, like the Dior marketing department, you'd be going to whoever is in charge of these decisions, going, "We need to start making mouthguards now because we'll sell them. Charge whatever you want for them because we'll sell a few."
It's going to be really annoying when you can't get a mouthguard that isn't a Dior one.
I think there'll still be room for the humble shock doctor at your local chemist.
Well, I've got one of those ones you have to, like, they mailed you like goo, and then you like put it in and
oh wow,
set, and then you mail it back, and then they mail you a mouthguard later on. I think the last time I wore it was when I was just trying to line you up in a game, and then you popped your shoulder, and didn't see you on the field, so it was really disappointing.
Damn, sorry I ruined that experience for you.
I think I did give away a 50-meter penalty though.
That's right. All right, before we get on to the prelim this Saturday night, worth noting in real time that it is about 9:30 on a Monday morning. Tickets will go on sale at 10 a.m, so I might, in real time, duck out of this podcast to secure my tickets for this Saturday.
Have fun with your 5 minutes of hell with just me on this podcast. It's going to be, like, nightmarish.
Melbourne, obviously, they're kicking... Yeah, well, I can't remember what the exact score was in the end, 9 goals, 17 or something to that effect that got them out of the game there. But that Max Gawn spoil / try to keep it in on the goal line that possibly could have got them the win when Clary Oliver booted that goal from 50. The straightest kick Clayton Oliver's ever done in his life, by the way, and Max Gordon decided, you know what? This one's not going in. I'm going to fist it back into the post.
Yeah, I don't really know. There was so many misses. Like, it was funny but like, I think more to the point was just them not picking very good options. Like, do you remember when David King was just going kind of nutballs on Big O for like just like hoofing the ball forward or like kicking the ball, not giving the ball to runners?
Yeah.
Max Gawn and that Briggs guy do that all the time. I like Briggs, but they both are guilty of that, and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, I guess. Like, have a look. But, yeah, Melbourne, I think I saw something. It's like they haven't kicked more goals than behind since their final against Sydney that they lost.
Wow.
The last final series? I mean, that's only a small sample space, but, like, sucked in. Nothing happier than seeing Melbourne out in straight sets. The idea that this team, like, when did they burst on the scene? It was, what, 2017?
Well, they made that prelim in 2018, and then they got smacked by West Coast in that, and then they sort of faded back out of the top 8 in 2019, and then all of a sudden 2020 they were back again, and then obviously 2021 they took out the flag, and it's been straight set since then.
Did they play finals in 2020? I can't even really remember.
I would imagine so.
Because it was odd, because I remember, like, 2018, we basically swapped places with them. Because they finished horribly.
Oh, no, 2020, they finished ninth.
Yeah, it was so... Because, I mean, they expected after that prelim to... Well, after winning the two finals in 2018 to sort of just crack on, and then they've really underachieved, and I couldn't be happier.
I will say that there is one thing better than seeing Melbourne go out in straight sets, and that's seeing Port Adelaide go out in straight sets. Bloody Kenny's not dancing on the boundary line anymore, is he?
No, well, is it an element of like, did they re-sign him too soon?
If you ask any Port Adelaide fan, then yes.
It was odd. They did have a lot of players that just didn't seem to sort of show up.
They got smacked in the middle on the weekend, and the week before when they played us, their forward line wasn't sort of clicking and certainly wasn't kicking straight. They just haven't got a key defender. Like, Trent McKenzie is not a key defender.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, and I mean, like, Alia's last quarter was as bad as I've ever seen him play. There were sort of 4, 5, 6 opportunities for him to take marks. He was not clean at all on the ground ball. And then, yeah, like, to see Rosie make sort of bad decisions get caught out. It's like, there's no two-way run in some of the midfielders, and like, Boak huffed and puffed. I thought Ollie Wines was a bit better than he was against us, but like, yeah, it's an odd one. Like, the idea of winning a lot of home and away games, but when you're playing against the best teams, I guess that's where we've been a little bit different. Is like, oftentimes we've played really well in home and away games, but then struggled against sort of big teams in big games. So, which is really odd because we seem to have quite a different approach to final footy, except for maybe GWS, but they were pretty good. They seem to have things kind of working all in order. So, a bit scary.
Yeah. They're genuinely scary at the moment, the Giants. And I remember when we played them, I said, you wouldn't be unhappy if you're a Giants supporter. They're playing footy the right way. And they got off to a really slow start, 3-7 or whatever it was. And then they've really just corrected the ship. And I guess that comes with a new coach teaching a new game plan. But once they sort of figured it out and got it clicking, they've been more or less unstoppable since then. And, well, they've found their way through to a prelim. So I'd be a bit worried if you were a Collingwood fan.
Yeah. Did you hear about that guy from GWS? I don't know who it was. One of their oranges.
Yep.
Saying it about round 10. He's sort of like, it's taken a bit of time to get this game style on board, but there's a good chance we could win every game in the last 10 of the year.
I think that was Sam Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, that was mental. Because just reading my notes from the game early on the year, GWS coach looks like manager of Chubb Security.
He does, but I mean, he should at this stage. He should have locked up Coach of the Year. Yeah,
I think he like, in terms of expectation. Yeah, like, there have been some teams that have massively overachieved. The funny thing is that Calrton, where they are, and where people thought they would be before round one have not overachieved, but they've overachieved within the context of where they were in the middle of the season. So,
Well, yeah, they were 15th at round 15 or something, and they've just
yeah.
flicked the switch. And it's going to be a bit weird having Vossy back at the Gabba in a prelim final and hoping to send him packing.
Well, hopefully. But just, on GWS, they're pretty well-rounded and they got a lot of runs. So Briggs had did a bit of a Kai Lohman.
Yeah, he's going to be a sore boy.
Got a bit more meat on him, so he was able to kind of absorb the blow a bit more, I think. So, I don't know. All the teams seem dangerous, but do you reckon other teams are like, oh shit, Brisbane look dangerous?
Probably. I mean, we had the most resounding win in the first week of the finals. We had the best last month of footy of any of the teams still in it at the moment. Maybe GWS's side, who they did drop that game against Port by 50-odd points, but I think they were missing a fair amount of talent in that game as well. So, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, everyone is very aware of the fact that we can put on goals and put them on quickly and put on big scores. And our team defense is clearly improved a little bit. Carlton remind me of us in years gone by, and then we're sort of in the Geelong position, if you like, of a hardened finals team that, all things being equal, should sort of teach Carlton and put them to the sword and say, you're not ready yet. Hopefully.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of X factor to them, and I think the game style kind of similar to how we stacked up in 2019 and 20. I think I said that a couple of weeks ago, so incepted that one into you, didn't I?
Yeah, you did a little bit, but I think they're probably in a better position.
I think they've got more overall experience, but they've just kind of choked a few too many times to kind of get into they should have played finals more than they have, but yeah, I guess it's hard when you get to this point in the season, but where the role players are such a big factor, and it's kind of like there's not too many of their role players that would kind of get into our team now that we've kind of found roles for a lot of our players. So it's odd. My thought is that, we probably do what Geelong did to us. That's a very good comparison.
I mean, I hope so. I really do hope so. Yeah, I suppose you've got a lot of people look at the bottom six as an indication of where both lists are at. And, I mean, for us, who is that?
Bottom six would just do a little flash.
I mean, looking at the Carlton sort of social media and subreddits and the trying to ascertain the fans' view of where they're at, a lot of people are saying don't bring Harry Mackay back in, but maybe those are just the loud minority. Other people are definitely saying, bring him in, bring Jack Martin back in, Cunningham, maybe Elijah Hollands, Motlop, Marchbank, potentially the ones to go out. Sort of, looking at that, Ollie Hollands.
Motlop looked pretty handy, just in terms of our sort of bottom six in the team, you're kind of looking at it being far out. There's not a lot of them, it really is there.
I mean, at the end of the day,
there has to be by definition, but
yep.
In terms of output, you're looking at our bottom six being probably Lester, Archie, Zorko,
maybe
Devrob, and then possibly Zach Bailey's output, but at the same time, he's got mucho opportunity to break things open, and then
you might even chuck Jared Berry in that as well. But those are good names
Berry
to have in your bottom six,
or something like that. But I think the fact that we're kind of trying to debate who's in the bottom six is kind of a really good indication of how far the team's come. Really, goodness me, because I think we, at no point in the season have we been lacking for talent. It's just sort of been the balance, I think. But Carlton, Carlton are good. Carlton have good players, particularly forward of the ball. And it is weird. The Charlie Curnow thing is frustrating and a little bit scary because it's sort of he hasn't really shown, and it's almost like a bloody cork bottle. It's the longer he doesn't, the more fear there is of him doing it at the next opportunity. So
it would have almost been better if he kicked 5 last week, but Stephen May did a fantastic job on him. He was relatively quiet in week 1 as well. So it's gonna be tough, especially if these rumors that started last night. Michael Whiting posted on AFL.com to do that. Jack Payne has been in a moon boot, didn't train last week. He's got that ankle that I can't remember what round it was, but he went down with an ankle towards the back half of the season. He hasn't been quite right since then. He's had a few more quiet games than you'd sort of used to him seeing, especially after he burst on the scene early on in the season. Was one of our most improved players, still is. But his output is definitely tapered as the season's worn on. Hopefully the week off will help him in that respect. But yeah, it's a bit of a wait and see, especially if Harry Mackay comes back in. Then it sort of leaves it to Leicester and potentially Darcy Gardner to come back in. And yeah.
Not a good problem to have in terms of selection. I mean, we've got two arguably selection questions, both of which I'd rather not have. Because I'd, put in the idea of Jack Gunson being fit again, and I just think, no.
I know. I can't believe that's even a discussion. I mean, yes, if he's fit again for the prelim, great, fantastic. Don't.
Yeah, do you think that that's the sort of thing that comes from people that don't really know the club or don't watch a lot of it? It's just media people that are like, oh, this big name is fit again. Surely he'll go back into the team. Whereas everyone internally and around the club, fans included and stuff, just know that it's probably not going to happen because it's like, well, why would it happen?
I mean, would you be surprised if it did, though? Like,
Yes, I would.
Fagan,
at this point in time.
Fagan has known to be stupidly loyal, and he has been stupidly loyal to someone like Jack Gunston.
But I don't think that he has. I think that it's a fallacy that he has as much control over team selection than he does.
Yeah,
like. These big sports teams, it's not just the coach picking the team. It's a massive panel, the leadership group. I was amazed to hear that Lachie Neale had quite a bit, like the leadership group had quite a bit of input about selection and things like that. I didn't expect that. But realistically, I can't see him coming back into the team. And if it does, it's like a massive breakdown of system.
Yeah, I agree completely.
System, whether there is that ability for someone to pull rank and say, hey, no, like, look at this situation. It's a little bit different to the Kerno and Mackay situation where, yeah, fair enough. Like Calrton might think that, yeah, we play better with him as a focal point, but like, yeah, but also your avenues to goal are a little bit less, I think. Although avenues to behinds might increase.
I will say, speaking about Calrton, it was very obvious where that ball was going for at least the first half of the game on Friday night. And Melbourne could just put May and Lever in the vicinity of Charlie Curnow and they would rebound the ball fairly easy. So
yeah, well, what was funny is when they started targeting De Koning was when they had their like better avenues through to goal.
Yeah,
and it's like, if Harry, speaking against myself, if Harry Mackay's there, does De Koning have as big a game? They're a team that really stacked the forward line or the field with tall players. So. Yeah, I don't know. Wiedering's an interesting one because, like, I think for all my mind, he got absolutely hit flush under the jaw.
Yeah.
And was like, he looked like a punch-drunk boxer. And they were like, nah, he just got hit in the throat. It's like, no, that's not how you behave when you get hit in the throat. That's how you behave when you've been sconned in the jaw and you're jelly-legged.
I think AFL did their investigation and it all came back clear. So,
did they? The conspiracies will go on.
I'm sure they will.
Maybe I stand corrected, but I just thought for all mine, I hadn't seen a person look that.
Yeah, he did look
much like he'd been punched in the face.
He did look worse for wear, didn't he? It wasn't quite as dramatic as the Port Adelaide situation, but he definitely was stumbling around in the goal square for 30 odd seconds.
And also, he was on the ground for a while, so there was a good minute odd of things. And I think, like, if that happens to a player with concussion history or whatever, like if that had happened to like Brownie or whatever, people would be like, oh no. He got hit in the face slightly. So, I don't know. Bit of consistency would be better. But I guess they just didn't want to take him off in that last quarter. And he was pivotal. So
yeah. How long was left when that happened? Maybe 5 to 10 minutes or something. He was fairly instrumental in that period of time as well. So, Doherty's going to be a bit of a watch because he will be sore. If he's playing on Saturday, he'll be jabbed up to the eyeballs and have a lot of scaffolding on his arm.
Him and because I'd be running through some players I'd be putting some physical heat on because we know that the Lions have tended to struggle a little bit when we've been physically challenged.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's been kind of like an upstart, kind of petulant thing like the Gold Coast where they sort of just were at us for no real reason, or like, the way Adelaide kind of did it in a sort of a pseudo dirty way. But like, we need to stand up physically and like impose ourselves on this game. And whether that's with like the beauty of people and shoulders is you can put a hip and shoulder on them fairly, and there's no recourse at all. There's, I guess, the players' code, or the idea of people being like, oh, well, is that all right? But then we can always just wheel out the footage of Jonathan Brown getting his knee punched in the 2004 grand final, or, Nigel Lappin with his broken ribs getting thrown into the advertising boardings. So
as long as it's legit, Melbourne have been accused of going too hard at the man rather than playing the ball over the last few finals as well. And, if it's false bravado, then it can backfire, and it just takes us away from playing good footy. So I'm all for that, if being physical, but if we're just doing it to do it, and that's our game plan, rather than, hey, don't forget we still got a game of footy to win here, then it's going to be a bit of a pisser. So yeah, you got to.
The game plan is still to play our game, but it's, if the opportunity's there, just don't be afraid to put body on. And I don't think our team are like, it was interesting to hear Chris Scott sort of talk about like being happier if his players kind of like pull out a contest rather than like risking a situation, because like for someone like him, the way that he played and stuff, like it's interesting to hear that that's what's preferable to a coach, because I don't think I've heard a coach say that in that many words. And that's always kind of the like media adage about these sorts of things, where you have players going in hard and getting suspensions and things. And the thing that is said is like, oh, well, if he doesn't go, then the coach will be like giving him a spray at half time. It's like, well, we've now heard that is not the case to one of the better coaches in the league. So do we now blanket that opinion with everybody and say, well, if a player doesn't go, because, take for example, someone like Zach Bailey, who's like hardness of the contest has been kind of questioned this year, but is that because he's been told not to go? I think it was the Adelaide game. He was particularly culpable, the one down in Adelaide Oval. But like, that was like a weird, drizzly, wet game where nothing really good could have happened. So it's like, got that's the way the team are being coached now. I don't know.
Maybe, but
it's changed.
It's also finals footy as well. Like, you've got to leave it all on the line? Like, yeah.
Well, you do now, yeah. You don't necessarily have to do it in an away game before the bye against Adelaide, but now,
And those are the questions that, I mean, if Jack Payne's ankle really is cooked, do we play him, run the risk of losing him for a grand final, to try and get there? And the same for Calrton. If Doherty and Blaker's bloody shoulders are cooked, and then Pat Cripps is playing with 4 broken ribs, do you rest them in the hope that you get through, or do you put them out there to get more bruises? Yeah, it's a tough one.
If you've got a mate that loves the Lions, tell them to get the podcast into their ear holes.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Just about the fixturing. So we had, interestingly enough, you've got the Port Adelaide and GWS game happening at a 7-day break from both of their games coming to now, and then they've now got a 6-day turnaround to play Collingwood on Friday night. Whereas in the Carlton and Melbourne game, they had a 7 and 8 day turnaround respectively since their game for their elimination final, and they now get an 8-day break to play us. What? Why? You could literally have had both teams have a 7-day break.
2 reasons. One is GWS finished 7th, so bad luck. 2, ratings. Melbourne Carlton on a Friday night was always going to be better than GWS and Port.
Yeah, but like, I feel like everyone that's going to watch those games are going to watch them anytime, regardless of when they're on anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the ratings kind of are inconsequential at this point in time. Like, they're both on prime time. I kind of always, traditionally for me, Saturday night was the footy night, not Friday night. Friday night was a bit of novelty. I don't know. It seems interesting, the idea that you could have the opportunity for like an equitable situation between teams and just opt for not.
Nah, mate. The AFL wants Collingwood in the grand final. That's what they want.
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do.
Look, it's clearly unjust, but that is the AFL as well. Like, you can't really make a fixture unless you're playing everyone twice, home and away. there's never going to be such a thing as a fair fixture.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's not like there's nothing wrong from our point of view. We're just like, oh, okay, cool. Well, would have been nice to play Calrton off of a 7-day break rather than an 8-day break, but how much is that one day going to really have? I don't know. Doesn't really matter for us. We're not traveling, so.
No, and we've had however many days as well. So I think the week off, it's a tough one. Historically, we haven't been good after a break, so that's playing into it.
Oh, we were pretty bloody good after the break, the one we just had.
Yeah, but is that win against Port Adelaide looking as good as it did?
I think so, yeah, because GWS played fantastically well and only won by 20 points. So we were able to, our level of maturity put Port Adelaide away when GWS kind of let them back in. Port Adelaide got within 2 goals, or
yeah, that's true,
13 points or whatever. So they were up to their eyeballs in that game in the last quarter, whereas the last quarter was a procession for us. So no, we still look good. I think we're still the most threatening team in the 4. And I think the way we played at stoppage, Calrton would be looking at that going like, oof, that's been our bread and butter.
Well,
which is weird because I honestly didn't think that the stoppage game would stack up in finals as much as the turnover game, but more fool me.
The good thing is against Port we had both rolling. So if we can have that again on Saturday, please, that would be nice. But their midfield is, I was worried about Port's midfield as well, but their midfield, Cripps is obviously a Brownlow medalist with an asterisk. Chera, Walsh, they've got good players running through. Do you reckon Dunkley goes to Cripps again? Or Walsh?
No, I reckon he goes to Walsh.
Yeah.
Because I think Cripps is a little bit hamstrung with what he can do. He's still a presence, but I think his output can be negated by someone like a Dev Rob in terms of just being close at stoppage. But I don't know. We've seen what Dunkley kind of did to Horn Francis in terms of like a running, bursting player, which is kind of more what Walsh is, and it was good. The couple of tackles that he did was sort of put that heat on. So, yeah, I don't think we really worry too much about like hard tags in the midfield, unless we need to pull the trigger and put a hard tag on in the midfield.
Yeah, I don't think it will be hard to begin with. I think Dunkley really just enjoys having that role and going with the best player without necessarily following them every inch. Not like a Willem Drew did last week or anything like that. I don't think he's that type. But if we can limit Walsh's output, because he was clearly best on Friday, if we can get him down from 30 plus to high teens, low 20s, then that's going to go a long way to beating them.
What do you reckon they do about Lachie Neale? Or do they do anything about our midfield?
Have they got someone in their lineup? I think Hewitt is probably the one that has had that role in the past. So yeah, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if Hewitt goes to Neale. But as we saw, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it is an odd one because then if you're putting Hewitt into the centres, then you're taking one of either Chera, Cripps, or Walsh out of there. Yeah. So it's like, well, you'd rather probably have Cripps, Walsh, and Chera. I talked about how important I thought Chera was last week. Last week, more so important than Walsh. The one just gone, Walsh obviously stepped up his game again. So it is interesting that in a similar sense, Cripps wasn't quite as prominent in the same way that Lachie Neale wasn't for us, but they had Sam Walsh, who albeit as a number 1 draft pick, and McCluggage sort of do the damage for them. So yeah, I feel like looking at these games, just scoring power is so much kind of more important than people think. We've been hearing David King prattle on about defense and defense and defense. You got to kick goals. Teams have been winning with low scores and lots of shots. It's pretty weird. Score goals and you'll win the game. Score more goals.
Well, that's definitely been our modus operandi for the last few years, and we sort of have learned that okay, you can get to point X with scoring lots of goals, but we need to take the next step. So yeah, we need to involve that team defense as well. Contest and stoppages is going to win you more games, I suppose, and that's what Carlton's employed, and they've got themselves to a prelim, so well done to them.
It was interesting just to have such a ballistic turnover game throughout the season, and then immediately in final swap to the second most points scored from stoppage in a final ever. It's just
crazy.
What? What was it? 90 points or something?
Yeah, 13 goals 3 or something. Which is silly.
Geez, Port must have a really shit ruck.
Lysette, yeah.
Yeah. Well, egg on my face. It doesn't look like Grundy's going there, which sort of doesn't make a lot of sense to me, given he's from Adelaide. But
No, but Sydney just have a way of pulling big names and getting the best out of them as well. So I think Grundy will.
They have a way of pulling big money.
Yes.
It was funny watching that game and being like, having him on some like Coles commercial at halftime on Channel 7. I don't know. My KO was out.
Yep.
So I had to watch on Channel 7. And he was cooking with that blonde chef dude at halftime. It's like, that's the reason why you got him, Melbourne. So he could be on at halftime to do your Coles thing. Like,
it's like how little.
Also, what the hell was Josh Shackey doing there?
Yeah, I know.
You know,
how little do they think of Brodie Grundy that they'd rather put Josh Shackey as a sub and not even use him?
Oh dear.
But maybe Grundy's already checked out and it's like whatever. There's always that. Yeah.
Josh Shackey.
Yep.
How is that guy still affiliated with football?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh dear. Go and get your tickets. Think about this for a while.
I'm looking at the Ticketmaster wait room. 2 minutes 55 seconds in real time before those tickets are available to me, so should be all right. We're officially in the grand final ballot, so yay for us. So
that's good.
Got to wait for Saturday, obviously, for the result there to find out if we are successful. But should be if we win. But especially if we're coming up against the Giants, there'll be tickets aplenty. But if we come up against Collingwood, it'll be a little bit harder to come by.
It is interesting, like if you look at the breakdown of how tickets kind of work, it's like, the two teams that get into the finals are like allocated something like 52,000 tickets or something. It's like,
yeah.
Because they need to give 48,000 tickets to MCC members and
corporates and all that. Yeah.
Knobs like that, which is just like, oh, okay, so there's going to be another 48,000 Collingwood fans. Brilliant.
Yeah.
The cult, MCC, far out.
Look, we'll worry about that when we need to. We still got another game against Calrton to go through first. What's your gut feel about Saturday night? Also, 5:15. Interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully
they're doing
a bit of the heat.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit lingering around, but not a huge amount. They're doing Calrton the solid that they didn't do for Port Adelaide, give them enough time to get home, should they win. And it also means that it's going to overlap with the Broncos prelim final as well, which they stupidly decided. I don't know why the AFL and the NRL didn't have a quick chat before doing fixtures, because we got 2 prelim finals in the city of Brisbane on Saturday night.
Yeah, look, do they... Oh, God damn it.
It's silly.
Sorry, I'm pulling my hair out. Do they honestly think that Collingwood and GWS are going to pull higher ratings than Carlton and the Lions?
Yeah.
But how?
Well, I mean, apart from the fact... I mean, Collingwood finished on top as well, so they do get the advantage of the extra day and the Friday night and all that sort of stuff. But, I mean, there's best part of 110,000 Collingwood members. So, yeah, I think they will.
But they'll be at the game. Carlton have had bigger crowds than Collingwood in the finals. They had a bigger crowd, and it's like... They won't be at the game, so why don't you give them prime time, their 96,000 people to watch it? That was as single... Melbourne had nothing at that game. It was amazing. Yeah, but it was unbelievable.
Melbourne supporters are infamous for not bloody rocking up. And did you see Port Adelaide was struggling to sell tickets for their game as well? I'm not sure if it was real or not, and surely it wasn't, because by the time the game rolled around, Adelaide Oval did look packed out. I don't know the figures in the end, but... They were struggling to, sell the tickets. There was a screenshot of a text message. I'm not sure if it's real, but it was, hey, get your family to the game this Saturday. Family pass for $50, 2 adults, 2 kids, to a semi-final at the Adelaide Oval. It's like, wow, are you that desperate? Are you going to bust out the Port Adelaide tarps again in a second?
Could you get that one even if you didn't have kids? That's pretty cheap. I think.
Yeah.
I think that Melbourne final last year cost me about $80 or something like that. But no, definitely an oversight to have them essentially overlapping. Are they trying to sort of think that, people won't be able to go to both? But I don't know. Will they just have a couple of buses for people that are millionaires that are going to both, or what?
I've got no idea. I don't think, the Venn diagram of people that are wanting to go to both is going to be a pretty small slither. But yeah,
I'm sure Grasshopper will chime in. He'll know.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Surely.
Feel free to do that.
So Rob, let us know what you're doing, purely for speculation's sake. Can't talk.
Get in touch anytime. Shoot us an email at blfancast@gmail.com or join the Discord.
Jack Payne, if he doesn't play, is Darcy Gardner coming in for you?
Yeah, because there's no one else.
Yeah. I mean, there's Darragh Joyce, who we just re-signed.
Oh, yeah, Darragh Joyce, yeah. Watched him run around, yeah.
But, I mean, obviously, they took Darcy out of the VFL with the idea that he will probably be the first man up should Jack Payne not pass the fitness test and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack Payne will play, but yeah, I mean, if he's not there, Gardner.
Yeah.
But I did notice Gardner's absence at the VFL, so yeah, not a good position to be in, I guess. But also, you wouldn't want your captain to have 700 broken ribs and 2 shoulders, and
That's true.
The thing.
Looking back at the game we played against Calrton in, would have been like round 6 or 7 or something like that. It was pretty early on. A very different Calrton to the one we're going to come up against on Saturday. But one of the games that we do look back on as one of our best performances, best team performances. The team defense was really dialed in. I mean, the way we played Adam Sard was brilliant, and obviously our scoring power as well. So, hopefully we're going to employ a bunch of the same tactics, but we can't just expect it to be the same result because, as I said, I don't think they had Walsh in that game. I can't remember.
No, Walsh was just back from an injury.
So he wasn't at his best.
Back.
Yeah. They had the 2 tolls. Jack Payne took Charlie and Harris, and Leicester sort of rotated with Harry. And what was it? 1 goal between them. I think Charlie kicked 1 goal, and that was it.
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
So Jack Payne will be a little bit worse for wear compared to them as well, if he's been walking around in a moon boot as well, so he won't quite have the same athleticism to run with him as much, but I still say
get him to spend all week just like looking at planes and he'll be fine.
Sure.
Eye on the sky, boy.
Are there any other sort of key matchups you're going to keep an eye out for? Like, obviously, Blake Acres has been the man for Calrton the last 2 weeks with his clutch performance, but he is just getting worn down each and every week as well.
Well, how do you reckon we line it up on the wings? Do we put Jared Berry on Acres and then go...
Fletch on Hollins or...
Fletch on Doherty? Or because I feel like Doherty's sort of age doesn't really lend itself to the exuberance of Fletcher at this point in time and his ability to kind of read the game in moments. But they're actually kind of, oddly enough, they're kind of similar in terms of those two both tend to like pick their moments quite well defensively and offensively. So... but I think looking back at the game, like Blakers went kind of nuts. Jared Berry also had a pretty big game too. So it was like, and then there was Ollie Hollins and Harry Sharp just like negating each other on the other wing. It was pretty weird. Sharp nearly munged it from a metre out.
Yeah, that's right. And nobody cared about his first goal. That's right. Yeah, well, I don't...
Oh, yeah.
Hollins, he was the sub last week, and obviously Calrton will be making a couple of changes.
I don't think Hollins gets back into the team. Like, he might not even feature. It was weird. Like, Hollins was not very good when he came on until he was quite good, in basically just that last passage of play, because he looked like a bloke who'd played all year and then been dropped before finals and come into play the last quarter of a very important final. It was like, poor fella.
Bit off some important kicks.
Yeah, he did in the end.
Yeah.
But I guess it was just kind of like he's a bit off the pace of the game initially. So... yeah, I mean, Jack Martin and Harry Mackay come in. Who goes out? I don't know.
That's
your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, looking at the Calrton sort of fans, they're sort of calling for Cunningham, Marchbank, maybe Motlop back to a sub role. But
Kennedy came in to play the role on lever. Like, I feel if they're taking Cunningham and like Marchbank out, that's just like very lopsided. So
yeah, look, I don't know, and Calrton fans will have a much better idea than either of us, evidently. But those are like Kennedy, that name you mentioned as well. Those are the names that have been floated. And like I said, there's a portion of Calrton fans that don't want Harry Mackay back in at all. But I think structurally, it's much better for them because otherwise they're just kicking it to Charlie Curnow and. I mean, everyone can see that coming a mile away, and Harris Andrews will have a day out if that's the case.
How did you make Pitnet on Gawn?
Yeah, I think slowly, more and more teams are figuring out if you want to beat Melbourne, step one is just target Max Gawn physically. So
He's a bit of a wuss, eh?
Uh,
like not actually,
yeah.
but like he seems a bit sulky boy sometimes. None more than round bloody what was it 2?
It's more. I mean, yeah, that was grim viewing though.
What did I put it? The nicest guy in prison.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Pitnet, he's alright. He's similar to Oscar. Like Oscar, Pitnet, Kieran Briggs are all sort of fairly similar ruckman. Not exactly like you jump and tap ruckman, but a bit more physical, bit more like use your body type operators. Whereas De Koning is more your run and jump type. So if they play all of them, that's a tall forward line. But I mean, there's a tall setup all around the ground actually. But if we haven't got Jack Payne, it's probably going to work well for him having those extra talls.
Yeah, and Darcy Fort looks a little bit out of form. He didn't really impress when he came back into the team early on in the year, and in the VFL he sort of seemed to struggle as well. So I guess they're two ruckmen, just a lot of onus, I suppose, on Joe Danaher. So,
well, speaking
just
of
realised that I've woken up and put my pants on backwards.
Lovely. Speaking of the second ruckman and our talls and all that sort of stuff, a bit of a rumour swirling that we're looking quite heavily at Mabior Chol as that third tall / second ruckman, because we're sort of looking to get Joe Danaher out of that and looking to get Mabior Chol in as the Gunston replacement / second ruckman.
Yeah, crickets for me.
Yeah.
I just that doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't.
Why? I mean, Danaher's we've seen that he just tends to play better when he's involved.
Yeah.
This has been his best season of footy. I'd include that one where he was all Australian. I would say. I think he's had more output. Plus, also I didn't watch that one because he was playing for Essendon. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of noise. And Mabior Chol, why?
Great question.
Tom Duday makes more sense.
Yeah, he's more your key defender though.
No, I mean more so for what we need.
Yeah.
If anything, we do need a sort of third hybrid tall defender for this exact situation. The idea of Jack Payne going out and you're like, shit, what do you do?
Well, Mabior Chol is about to play in a grand final in the VFL, so I'm sure he will do his bit to secure another contract, whether it's with us, the Gold Coast, or elsewhere in that game. They'll be taking on Werribee after they beat the Lions 2s on the weekend. You managed to go down to the game?
Yeah, it was a fun day out.
How was the atmosphere at the VFL prelim?
Well, the Werribee faithful were pretty up and about, the back half of the game, chanting and whatnot. And probably one of the biggest cheers of the game was when looked like a giant tennis ball, kind of went on the field, not anywhere near the play, and one of the umpires just lined it up and just smashed it back into the crowd. They got a bit of a rousing kind of response. Sure. But it was a lovely day, really lovely day. Nice and warm and sunny, and I mean not too sunny. I was in the shade because I don't really like the sun personally. Tell you what though, watching football at ground level is certainly a skill. And I do not have it.
Yeah.
I did not have much of a clue of really what was going on.
It's tough,
most of the time. So much so that I managed to myself and my partner, we squeezed ourselves up as far back in the bleachers as we could. I believe with some of the Lions parents, maybe,
sure,
to get a slightly elevated position, which it's amazing what difference about 2 meters makes. So not a great deal to report. It's probably Richie's last game. I thought sort of Jackson Pryor and Sharpie and Tunstall were pretty good. Matho and JL got blanketed pretty heavily, given their output in the VFL over the course of the season. There are a lot of guys kind of running around I didn't really know too well. A lot of numbers in the 50s and the late 40s that I was kind of yeah, right, fair enough. Kyle Lohman was there just sort of running around. Well, not running around. Literally not running around. Walking around with his shoulder in a cast, thin boy. But Yeah, aside from that, just kind of classic sort of local footy feel. People were allowed out for the addresses at quarter time and stuff like that. Kids running around on the field at halftime, three-quarter time. But
Nice.
yeah, I mean, they didn't. Werribee were pretty good. It's an interesting thing to kind of say for teams that are not affiliated with an actual AFL team, where they kind of are sort of the festering ground for players that have either tried to have AFL careers or been drafted and not played and things like that. And seem to be a bit older, a bit bigger bodied, but albeit we have players in our team like that too. So didn't really have much to make of it. Just enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, obviously, Kaida Clace has been one of the best VFL players for a long time. He almost signed with Melbourne a couple of years ago as well, so he was best on. I think I think he might be their captain. He had a good game as well. And Gribble, it wasn't Gribble, it was Garoni up front, just kicked a bag of 4. So good team. They're deserved winners, and they'll take on the Suns in the VFL Grand Final. Lovely bit of kit as well, the Werribee Guernseys. Do like that.
It is kind of cool, the idea that they've sort of managed to do essentially the Victorian V with the Richmond sash and then just turn it into a W and make it their own. So
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. Best of all the worlds there wrapped up into one.
I mean, all the worst of all the worlds, depending on who you ask. But,
True.
Style looks good. Horrible parking, but that's all right. Is what it is, I guess. They weren't expecting that many people. But, yeah, nice day out, I feel.
Make sure you follow us on socials. Just search for BL Fancast.
You would imagine that JL will likely be the sub again this Saturday, you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Could they go Gunston as the sub for some sort of insane reason?
Please don't. Please don't do that.
I mean, whether JL was just kind of reining it in or something, like, I don't know. Didn't really. I guess JL the sub this week. I don't change anything, personally.
No, I don't either. And I'd be very surprised if there was any changes. The only question mark is over Jack Payne, as we've discussed, and whether it's too much of a risk to have him in this game. That would be the only likely change, perhaps. But yeah, I would imagine it's going to go unchanged and see what we can do against Calrton, who have got some selection dramas of their own. Obviously, 2 will come in, and it really depends on the fitness of a couple of others, whether they get another game.
Agreed, I think. We've said quite a lot about the game, so I guess we just sort of let ourselves do the talking, and if we play our way and, go when we need to, that's kind of should really be enough at home.
On the other side, Collingwood will welcome back the golden boy, Nick Dacos, and someone's going to have and Taylor Adams is going to go out of that side as well. So it might just be as simple as Adams out, Dacos in. Poor little Johnny Noble might miss out again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand that. I didn't at the time. Oleg Markov played all right, but I just sort of feel like, you know what you're going to get out of Johnny Noble. So bit of a weird one, but yeah, I think Dacos in to play his alleged position of on ball as ruck rover, as he was all Australian, despite playing about 3% of football in the rucks. Oh, yeah.
Who would you rather play in the grand final, Collingwood or GWS?
Collingwood.
Yeah, same.
Just because I think I like the idea of it being sort of 20 years on from the last one.
Our record.
I just feel like it would have
good.
a bit of a better. Yeah, I mean, our record against both teams has been quite good, aside from the one where you bloody met Fletcher in the crowd. But yeah, I just think Collingwood, I don't know, I just got a good feeling about that more so than anything.
Yeah,
and I just like the idea of it. Like, GWS is still a bit fictional. Like, you'd want to win your first flag in 20 years against, a real team.
Honestly, GWS are just like an unknown quantity at the moment, and they're about as real as any other team at the moment. Either the way they're playing their footy, they're just they're a bit worrisome, because at least with Collingwood, you sort of what you're setting up for. GWS is a little bit more. That might be a bit harder to prepare for. It was good to see Fags and Danny Daly in the crowd at the Melbourne Carlton game as well, just scouting the opposition.
It was very like English Premier League style, like they used to cut to like Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger in the crowd, like wearing like a big billowing cloak, like looking up, sort of. Yeah, it was funny as, and I was looking for him at the VFL, but I couldn't find him. Found a bunch of old men that looked a bit like him, but weren't. Thankfully, I didn't approach them. But I suppose if he was there, he was probably hiding out back. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's cool. I think it's fun. It's a good bit of narrative. So,
I mean, I like it. Optics is the word that people are throwing around. I think it was good optics to have him there just to suss out.
It's a bit of a show of intent, I think, as much as anything. Like, shows that they're serious. He's doing all that he can, to try and maximize performance or whatever. So, yeah, good for the team. But who do you fancy in this Collingwood GWS?
I think Collingwood will win, but I would not be shocked if GWS got the win there, and that would be funny. That would be funny.
It would. I feel like my finals tips have been absolutely woeful so far. I think I've only gotten our game and one other. So, what do I know?
Yeah, look, I mean, this time last week we were talking about the Melbourne Carlton game, and I said, "Oh yeah, gut says Melbourne," and up until the last minute and a half, they should have put that game away as well. So yeah, it's been I did say at the start of the final series, I said either Collingwood or Port Adelaide are going out in straight sets. I didn't think there'd be 2 straight sets exits, and I didn't realise Melbourne was going to be one of them. They were my pick for the flag. So
I tipped a Port Lions grand final.
That's right.
I thought Port would bounce back and go on some sort of mad run with their but they got more injured rather than having players come back, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, I've only had the GWS St Kilda game and our game as the only 2 that I've correctly picked, so I don't know. Clearly, I'm not saying that I don't think. I think Collingwood will win, but I'm not correct.
The same sentiment applies. That let the injuries and suspensions commence. Whatever it is, I hope it's a hard-fought game and both leave the field battered and bruised, as I'm sure whoever wins that game will be watching our game thinking the same thing as well. And it will be a slug against Carlton this week. It really will be.
Try and add a bit of pace to it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's...
Play our way and we'll be fine.
Get Country Road blaring.
Like the show? Make sure to follow and subscribe on your favourite podcast platforms.
Just quickly, before we wrap this one up, the girls' big win against Sydney at Brighton Homes Arena. Ali Anderson continuing on her ways, 27 touches. Jade Ellinger had a fantastic game in the midfield. Isabel Dawes as well, 11 tackles, 7 clearances, 20 touches. She's really coming along. And Shannon Campbell with a bit of a switch, playing up front. She presented well, didn't affect the scoreboard, but we had Courtney Hodder and Conway kicking 3 goals each, O'Dwyer, Mullins and Dax Davidson kicking 2 apiece. So goals are plenty, a big score, 55-point win to the girls. So they're back on track after an early season defeat, and they're sitting in the top 8 with a very, very healthy percentage. So looks like they're going to be thereabouts again for another year.
Lovely stuff.
Anything else you want to touch on before we head on into a Saturday night prelim against the Blues?
I don't think so. There's not really too much that's really happened. It seems a bit like the calm before the storm, which it kind of is.
Do you think the one game in 3 weeks is going to have any sort of adverse effect on us?
No, not this time. Categorically, no.
All right. Well, there goes any further discussion that may have stemmed from that.
Do you think that it will?
It does worry me.
It does worry me
a little bit.
Here?
Yeah, it does worry me. 1 game in 3 weeks, whereas Carlton has built a good deal of momentum in their last couple of games. So maybe it's just the fact that it's a prelim and I've booked tickets to Melbourne that I'm just extra cautious and worried about this Saturday night.
You wouldn't be the only one that's cautious. So, no, I think the momentum is kind of like a relative term in that we've got momentum based on the fact that we won, and then we've won. Our form is as good as Carlton's has been virtually in the back half of the season. So, we just had one loss by 1 point where we played our best football, and aside from that, we've got a similar record. So, can you really say either team's in bad form? No, not at all. And our team's a lot healthier looking than theirs, and we're at home, and we just dusted one of the top teams. So, as did they, but they didn't really dust them. They kind of crumbled over the line, which is good. So. Yeah,
I think either the momentum will work their way, or they'll do what we did last year and play their grand final last week and it'll be too much of an ask for them to come up against us on our home deck on Saturday. And fingers and toes crossed that it is the latter.
Yeah, you have made that grand final analogy twice now, you peanut. So
I have. All right.
It'll be all right. Come on, the boys. They'll be all right.
Yeah, well, that's it. Hopefully they will be. If you go into the game, I can officially tell you I'll be in section 428. So say good day. As always, get in touch, blfancast@gmail.com or via any of the socials. Just search for BL Fancast. We do have an email.
Oh, shit. Fair enough. There we go.
Don't have a name. Oh, Tom.
I was like, there's no return email addresses.
It's just.
Do you want to subscribe to our weird service?
It just had an email address, and I didn't want to read someone's email address out on a podcast, but it is from a guy called Thomas. He's looking for leads on a long sleeve Lions Clash jumper, the red one, so I guess the Fitzroy style long sleever, sort of the one that Lincoln McCarthy's been known to wear in an away game. I had a brief look for you, Thomas. They're hard to find. So hence why he's reaching out to us. So if anyone does know, get in touch and I'll pass that on to Thomas. I'm not going to give you his email because that seems disrespectful and irresponsible.
Yeah, I'm willing to undercut that transaction. Providing it's like a big boy shirt.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, Thomas, you may have
sorry, Tom.
face a bridge tax on that one, but hopefully someone can help you out because I had a look and couldn't find anything. So, fingers crossed for you because it would be a nice little piece of kit.
But I do want to leave you on one thing. You little beauty!